Because
Yes.
like you said, if she went and said like, hey, just letting you know our steamer is down, it's going to take me one extra minute or so, but I'm working with a room service team. Don't worry, I got you covered. That would have been like, boom, serendipitous moment right here.
Yeah.
Right? Of just
Yeah.
like, I got the milk, even though the steamer's down. How'd you get the milk? I don't know. You must have a hot cow in the back. Welcome to the Attraction Pros Podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the Attraction Pros Podcast. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
It's going fantastically, Josh. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for asking. Question.
Yes.
Do you remember the first time you visited a theme park?
The very first time. I don't know if I can remember the very first time, but I can remember way back in the Wayback Machine when I was very young. I have some very early memories of Geauga Lake and SeaWorld in Ohio. But I don't know if that was my very first time. But I believe those are my earliest memories.
Yeah. Do you know how old you were in those?
I was at least 5 because we moved to that part of Ohio when I was 5. And before that, I was in central Ohio and Michigan. So I'm going to say 5 or 6-ish.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And how about you?
That was all I had.
Okay.
No, I don't remember my first theme park experience because I was living in Miami at the time and quick jaunt up to Orlando. Pretty sure went to Disney World when I was 6 months old. And my parents tell me about multiple Disney trips. And I went to Busch Gardens, I think before it became the mega theme park that it is. And probably a handful of others as well that I have no recollection of. But I just experienced a first for me.
I was going to say, you probably remember now your children's first theme park experience.
So I just experienced my first time visiting a theme park with my children, which also made it both of my children's first theme park experience. And it allowed me to really look at it through a fresh lens that was equal parts enjoyable and stressful at times as well, of now being kind of a parent on a Disney vacation.
So I'm curious to hear more about this experience. And I can only imagine that, like we talk about with so many guests, right? We talk about seeing things through the children's eyes, and you just kind of mentioned that that was part of the exciting process of it. But I'm imagining you also saw things that you probably never would have seen if you were there with other people of your own age and you weren't
Yeah.
there with your own children.
Yeah, a little bit. It was interesting because it was seeing things through the lens of my children, but also now really seeing things through the lens of a parent as well. And I know for many people, probably many people who listen to this podcast, perhaps they've had that perspective for a while, and there are people that I know who were like my parents who were lugging their tiny little babies around, Disney parks and various theme parks and maybe even sporting events and and things like that. We wanted to hold off just a little bit, not too much, because we wanted, at least for our son who is 5.5, to remember his first theme park experience, and it also allowed him to kind of age out of diapers and naps and things like that, which our 2-year-old daughter, of course, was in that phase, but she held her own pretty well for the few days that we were at the parks. And as I reflect on this trip, I was able to kind of take some notes and some observations and some things that I wanted to share on the podcast that are not necessarily lessons from Disneyland, because I think that all of us are probably regularly force fed in our LinkedIn feeds, lessons from Disney and things like that. So where I'm going with this in particular is a couple of specific stories, as well as kind of some observations as well, and some things that we can actually kind of break down and look at through the lens of guest experience and hospitality and things that are very, very practical and are not Disney exclusive.
All right,
Yeah.
let's dig in.
All right. So the first one, the reason why we went to Disneyland is because at Disney California Adventure, they have built and 14 years ago opened Cars Land, which is basically, if you have seen the movie Cars, you feel like you are walking into Radiator Springs. So our son, who I mentioned is 5.5, has been a huge Cars fan ever since he was about 2.5 years old or so. So for about 3 years, his favorite color is red, specifically because Lightning McQueen is red. He has had a Cars themed birthday. I mean, his bedroom is not super big, but like occupying a lot of real estate on his walls are movie posters from the movies. We have what I think is just about every piece of retail that can be purchased regarding we've got the die-cast metal cars, we got all of that. And my wife and I have known for a few years we need to get to Radiator Springs. And we need to get there before he outgrows the Cars phase. Because we know that even though it's been 3 years, we know that it's temporary. So we specifically went to Disneyland instead of Disney World so that we could go to California Adventure and visit Radiator Springs. Now we did just about everything else as well over the 3 days that we were in the parks, but that was the main central focus of being able to go. And in one of the times on day two when we went there. So at this point on day one, we got to ride Radiator Springs Racers. He got to ride it a couple of times. We got to, by the way, there are the filler attractions that are in there as well. There's a Luigi ride. I can't remember what it's called, but there's also Mater's Junkyard Jamboree, which we rode multiple times, which I was not expecting to ride so many times or enjoy it as much as I did, or have my son asking about it as much as he has been since the trip. But one of the biggest things, and I'm going to call back to the interview that we did with Jake McCoy, where he talked about the importance of, not the importance, but kind of the magnitude and the special aspect of character meet and greets. And so who did my son want to meet when we were in Radiator Springs? None other than Lightning McQueen. And so at one point when we were walking through Radiator Springs, we saw that Lightning was in his meet and greet spot. We went the day before. Mater was there. We got a picture with Mater. It was awesome. I didn't even know that they alternated. I didn't know that Tow Mater was there sometimes. Lightning McQueen was there, other times. But when we went back on day two, we saw that Lightning McQueen was there and he was available for meet and greets. So we went in line, and while we're there, the character attendant starts chatting us up. He sees that my son is wearing a Lightning McQueen hat, a Lightning McQueen shirt, a Lightning McQueen shorts, and if we hadn't made him wear his sneakers, which of course were the same color red as Lightning McQueen, he would have been wearing his Lightning McQueen Crocs that we bought the day before while we were there. But the character attendant acknowledged that the world's biggest Lightning McQueen fan is here. Starts chatting to my son, talking for a little bit, and gets really excited. And we got up and we got to do the character meet and greet. And he got to go up to Lightning. He got to talk to him. He got to put his hand on his hood. Got a great picture. We got pictures on our phone. We got the Disney photographer, the photo pass, picture, taken. And when looking at this picture, his smile, he was happy the whole trip. But the size of his smile of being able to meet the real Lightning McQueen was something that was just absolutely one of the most remarkable moments of the trip. And then the character attendant who had been speaking with him a few minutes prior says, "Hey, since you're the world's biggest Lightning McQueen fan, Lightning has something for you," and brings out an autographed picture of Lightning in a frame. That, yes, Lightning McQueen himself, do not ask how a race car can sign an autograph, but he did. And his autograph was not his name, it was a drawing of himself, of Lightning McQueen, and presented it to my son. Completely unexpected. absolutely fits into this framework of a wow moment, or as Disney calls them, a magical moment of being able to get Lightning McQueen's autograph. And the reason why I think this story is so significant is because in the moment, for us, it felt spontaneous. It felt completely unexpected. It felt like this kind of moment of magic of how did this happen? But as I really reflected on it and was thinking, I don't actually know how it happened in particular. Maybe they've got a stack of them in the back room that they could provide, but clearly they can't do that to every single guest every single time. So when I talk about wow moments, I talk about things that go beyond expectation, that go beyond what the team member needed to do, that don't create any service failures for any other guests, and have minimal expense, if any expense at all. It doesn't need to be a huge, significant, cost to the organization. And then I also talk about kind of the ways of really operationalizing this idea of a wow moment. And it's making the observation, which in this case was identifying that my son was dressed head to toe in Lightning McQueen gear. Definitely was not the only kid dressed that way throughout the time that we were at the parks at Disneyland. Saw a lot of other Lightning McQueen fans. He aligned it with the wow moment or the magical moment that could be done of knowing, hey, we can get an autographed picture of Lightning. And then he reacted. He did it in a way that it was almost part of his job to recognize these opportunities and take action. So that's why I think the story is significant, because that's something that even if you don't have the IP that Disney has, and a Lightning McQueen caliber type of character or anything like that, it's an opportunity to recognize these opportunities and then build a system that the guest can't see in the background that is working very hard to create these almost serendipitous moments of what feels to the guest like magic that it came together. So that was
Yeah.
the first story that I wanted to share of here's this experience we have that heightened our experience. We were already having a great time. This was not a service failure. This was not something that needed to be recovered from. They identified a positive experience, something that was already going well, and they made it even better.
So the word that pops to mind is not immersive, but it is intentional,
Yes.
right? Because it was an intentional thought for the management team, the attendant team to say, we're going to have something that we can give to a couple of kids here and there, right? When they really demonstrate, when we observe that they're really the embodiment of the greatest fan in the world, right? And they deserve it. And so they're going to present this thing. To your point, you could have walked away and 3 minutes later, three guests later, they did it again, right?
100%.
You're not
Yep.
going to know that and you don't care.
Don't
But
care. Yep.
the impact that it had on you and Jacob was so strong that the intentionality behind it is what made that happen. But it seemed like it was, like you said, serendipitous,
Mhm.
right? Which I think is the definition of magic.
Yeah. And now that picture is getting framed, getting put on the wall, and that acts as one of the core memories from our trip.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a story we get to talk about for a long
that's
time.
awesome. That's awesome.
The next one, this is flipping things around a little bit. This was a service failure moment, which, it's funny when I tell this story to people and to some clients and to some meetings I have, they're like, Josh, you must love when you encounter service failures. I'm like, yeah, I love it. Like when I experience it in the wild, right?
Right.
And so this happened at breakfast at our hotel. We were staying on property. And the first story was about my son. This one is more about my daughter. She's 2 years old, and despite being 2 years old, she still loves to have her warm milk every morning and every evening. She requests it specifically. She wakes up in her crib and she's like, "Make a bottle." So we are always regularly warming milk in our house. And if we're traveling, we're if we don't have a microwave, then we want to be able to. If we're at a restaurant, they can help us warm milk, right? So we sit down at breakfast and we're in the restaurant that's that's on the pool deck. And I was not expecting to be seated at the pool deck, right? So I've got my son is going bonkers. He can't wait to go in the park. My daughter who's just antsy and kind of fidgety, and my wife who was running a few minutes behind, like taking a few minutes in the room. And so I'm managing all this. She comes down a few minutes later. But when I ordered from the server, I asked, I said, hey, is it possible to just have some milk and have it warmed up? And they said, well, we don't have a microwave, but I can do steamed milk. And I was like, you know what? That's fine. If you could bring just steamed whole milk and maybe I'll put an ice cube in it. I'll wait for it to cool. That'll be totally fine. She comes back, and by the way, like my wife also likes steamed milk in her coffee, so it worked out perfect. I was like, if you can bring like a whole cup of steamed milk, that'd be great. Uh, she comes back a couple minutes later and she said, so our milk frother or milk like steamer is not working right now. But just letting you know, there's a Starbucks that's in the lobby, or there's the other, a cafe that's, grab and go, and you can walk up and you can go there. And I looked at her and I said, can you help me get it from Starbucks or get it from somewhere else and just charge it to the room? And my wife was like, Josh, it's fine. We can do it. And like the server's like, let me talk to my manager. Let me see what we can do. And she walks away and my wife's like, Josh, why'd you ask for that? I was like, because we are the family in need right now, right? Like this is not a huge disaster or anything like this, but it was like if you and I were traveling by ourselves, like this would be a non-issue. Like, all right, I'll get up and I'll walk over and I'll do this. But now like we're at the pool deck, like I don't want my kid to fall in. Like son's going bonkers, daughter's fidgeting. We were with some family as well, so we were with like some cousins and things like that, and the kids are just like just monkeying around basically. I was like, this is Disney hospitality. Like they should be
Mhm.
able to do this for us. And my wife's like, oh, is it? And I was like, you know what? Your skepticism is fair. I was like, fair point, but we're about to find out. And so a few minutes later, she comes back with a cup of warm milk. And she said, I was able to speak with my manager and we were able to get it from room service. And I was like, thank you. I was like, I really appreciate you doing that. And as we reflected on this, ultimately the issue was resolved. My
Mhm.
my fancy daughter was able to have her bougie warm milk at breakfast that morning. But as I've talked about this with a couple other people and kind of shared it in some meetings with some clients and shared it in my community meeting recently, the conversation came up of just that should have been the initial offer of just not, hey, you need to go do this, because the issue wasn't with me. The issue was something broken in the kitchen, and it was let me go out of my way to help you, right? To do the Disney caliber hospitality to be able to do it. So ultimately that is what happened, but it took me asking for it to be able to get there in a circumstance where, like, again, this is me seeing it through the lens of a parent. Anything else, be like, all right, no big deal. Like I'll go figure it out myself. It's not the worst thing in the world. But now I'm just like, no, I am the demographic in
Yeah.
need, right? We are the family who needs attention, who needs a little bit of assistance in this particular moment.
Well, and what I hear in that story is, yes, that got resolved, but if the team member, the cast member, recognized all of the different options that were available. Now, this may be a not very often asked for item, steamed milk, right? And maybe they didn't know that in this particular case, if they can't do it from their own restaurant, they can go to these other places, or that they can actually go do it. Like, I think that's a mindset of what else can I do, right?
Mhm.
That until you've been in a role for a while, and I was actually having this conversation with somebody recently as well. We were talking about if the initial thing doesn't work out, right? A lot of times it's now on it's your job now to fix your own problem, right? I'm going
Right.
to give you some suggestions, but it's your job now. Instead of like a true service professional, someone that really has the hospitality mentality, like they know that this guest wants some steamed milk, right? We don't have a way to do it here. What else can I do? The only acceptable answer is to get you the steamed milk.
Right.
Just like the Lightning Queen, you don't care how they got it, right? Unless they have a really hot cow in the back and they're steaming it that way. But all you care about is that you get it, and that should be the ultimate. That's like the ultimate service provider mentality.
Right.
That would be it's great if we can teach that, but it's even better to encourage that in, upcoming up and coming service providers.
So in the first story, an experience happened because we could not see the system running in the background. The second story happened because it was exposed.
Mm,
Because
yes.
like you said, if she went and said like, "Hey, just letting you know our steamer is down. It's going to take me 1 extra minute or so, but I'm working with our room service team. Don't worry, I got you covered." That would have been like, boom, serendipitous moment right here,
Yeah.
right? Of just
Yeah.
like, I got the milk, even though the steamer's down. How'd you get the milk? I don't know. You must have a hot cow in the back.
Yeah. So, as a service professional, what's your takeaway? I know you said we're not doing lessons from Disneyland, but what are our takeaways that we can take from
The
this?
takeaway from that is just that the team member is there to assist the guest, right? And I'm not saying it in any type of like entitlement type of way, but it's more so just like the server identified that the guest had a need, knew the solution, but didn't connect the dots to say, wait a minute, it would be easier on everyone if I was the solution, if I made the solution happen, than if I put the ownership on the guests themselves.
Absolutely. And that person that would create the solution, they're an attraction pro.
Exactly.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing those stories. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I have one final thing. This is an observation, and like I mentioned, there's just a lot. We've seen a lot of parents taking small children to theme parks, and that having worked in the industry, having worked for Disney and Universal and multiple other parks, I've always had just full respect and appreciation for just for families who have made that effort to be able to do that, and knowing that it is not insignificant. It takes a lot of effort to be able to, in our case, get on a plane, go across the country. We stayed with family for 4 days beforehand to adjust to the time zone, and then even that there was still just all of the natural effort and friction that is built into just getting to the gate. I have a newfound level of respect and appreciation having now been through that myself with with my family, and if I were to just extend that just a little bit further, an even greater, again, always had it, but now an even greater appreciation for those who have families with children with special needs, or families who are going to Central Florida to stay at Give Kids the World or Make a Wish. And I feel very thankful and fortunate that my children are very healthy, and that we don't have a lot of that additional, I would say, effort and stress on us to be able to do that. That my again have always seen the effort, I've always appreciated it, but again, it's now just on an entirely new level of just anybody who's able to get to the theme parks despite all odds. And that's the magic. That truly is just something that we can all uh, we can all really look at and realize that maybe sometimes we take it for granted because we see it all the time, we see it every day. That is oftentimes just the day to day of people who have made just a significant, I'll just use that word again, just effort to be able to just show up at your front gate.
Absolutely. And that's probably why, even though I don't have children of my own, being in the theme park industry for so long, I will never complain about a crying baby on an airplane. Never. Never. I feel like I know what that parent's going through, and all the luck in the world to take care of that child. So, well, thank
Well,
you
then,
again
then
for
once
sharing that.
once we stop recording, I'll tell you about the flight home. Then after that,
Okay. Good times.
but
Good
thank
times.
you for letting me share this, and for everyone out there who is watching and listening, just remember we are all attraction pros.